Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we learn how to solve the square 1 cube. Now this is 1 cube which works on numeric algorithms. Like for example, they will say slash 2 comma minus 4, or they might say a slash negative 3 comma 2. So like I was not so comfortable with them. I kind of made a few mistakes, because sometimes you get confused with the positive and the negative movement in the top and bottom layer. So as always, like I watched many videos, and then I ended up at one video where the algorithm used are the regular alphabetical ones. So like you come to a conclusion that when we say U and D, they are the positive numbers, and when you say UI and DI, they are the negative numbers, and the R means the slash move. Okay, the slash move. When you say R, it means the slash move. Now when the cube is facing you, okay, and the edge pieces are facing you, that is like, how do I say, it is a single piece. For example, I'll explain what. Now this is the cube, right? It is facing you. Now this is the edge piece, this is the edge piece, and this is the corner piece. This is the corner piece, whereas this is the edge piece. So remember that. Alright, then at all times, okay, at all times you should have the tiny rectangle in the middle layer always on your left hand side. So your left thumb should be placed over it. Alright, and you have to do your algorithms. Alright, the left thumb, your left thumb should be placed on the tiny rectangle on your middle layer. Alright, and what if you don't have the, you might end up at cases and situations where you may like if you solve this side of the cube and you have to rotate the cube, and you don't have that tiny rectangle on the left. Look, you don't have it. Now you have this slightly wider one. So what do you do in this case is that you first, I can give you a hint, you can first do the R move. So for example, like this is how I'll hold the cube. Okay, when I need to get the tiny piece on my left side, okay, when I need to get the tiny piece on my left side, I'll hold the cube like this, and you can see this is my R, this is my right side. So you do the R. Okay, now hold your middle layer with your left thumb. Okay, and can you see my this is the this side is the top layer, this side is the bottom layer. So how do you do is hold the top layer very firm, and now the bottom layer firm. See, like this is how I'll be holding it. Okay, but hold it firm, hold it firm, otherwise at times after doing the moves you have to adjust, and you will see what I mean, because maybe even I will kind of lose control. I try my best to keep it firm. Okay, so the first step is to get the tiny rectangle on your left side. The first thing, hold the longer side rectangle with your left thumb, take the right side up. After you do that, hold the top layer's right side corner piece. Hold the top layer's right side corner piece and the bottom layer's left side corner piece. Hold it firm like this. Okay, now with your middle finger of the right hand, touch it over here, middle layer back side. Okay, and holding the top and bottom layer firm, rotate it once, middle layer once, rotate again one more time. So basically you are rotating your middle layer 2 times, okay? And then see, my top layer was not so firm, so was my bottom. So I have to just kind of make sure that I adjust it properly, and then now you simply do one R again. So see, you ended up getting your tiny rectangle piece on your left side. All right, let's do it one more time. All right, I'll place the cube like this. Okay, I'm lifting it again. To get the tiny rectangle piece on your left side in the middle layer, first hold the middle layer with your left thumb on the on the left side. Rotate the right side up. Top layer right side corner hold firm, bottom layer left side corner hold firm, and with the help of your middle finger placed at the back of the middle layer, rotate the middle layer twice towards the left. Okay, once and twice. Okay, and then I do my R move. Remember, if your top and middle shift a bit, you need to kind of adjust a step front and back depending which layer you have ended up shifting. Okay, so this is all about it. Then let's go on to more details, like for example, if I say, for example, all right, if I say U and DI, all right, so remember that the left side alphabet represents the top layer sorry, and the right side alphabet represents the bottom layer. So U and DI, this is what I said. So U means the upper layer and D means the bottom layer. Now in the regular 3x3x3 cube, U means it goes to the left, UI means it goes to the right, D means the bottom side goes to the left, and DI means the bottom side goes to the right. So the same logic is applied here. And one more thing, please don't worry, I will be also giving you the numeric algorithms at the same time. When when we are solving the cube, I will do one thing. I will make one entire file and upload it on the drive, where you can download the entire algorithm, the alphabetical style or the numeric style, whichever you are comfortable with. All right, so let's now begin. Now if I say that what did I say, U and DI, so I will place my finger on the small rectangle piece like this. All right, I'll place my thumb on the small rectangle piece. I said U and DI. So now there is a dividing line. Can you see it clearly? Yeah, remember that. So this is the dividing line. So when I say U, how many times did I say the alphabet U? Only once I said it, right? So this is counted as once, only once. Okay, so I will move it once. Okay, because it is only one piece, it's made up of only one piece. I will move it only once. Okay, I also said DI, correct? So now I will check for the line formation. Where's the line, cutting line happening? It's happening here. So DI. So DI means it goes towards the left. So DI. How many times did I say DI? Only once. So this piece goes to the left once. Okay. See, the line is free. So my move was correct. Alright. Then what else should I say? Then if I say u di, if I say u di, this is what I did, right? Let's say what if I say u di di di. All right, if I say u di di di, so first thing we need to place our thumb here and check where the line, free line cut is happening. Okay, the free line cut is happening here, so I always kind of keep it a little raised. Now how many times did I said u, right, and di di di. So how many times did I say u? 3 times. So 1, 2 and 3, because this is made up of 2 portions, right? So 1, 2, 3. So this one, this piece till here basically we count, it goes to this side of the line. All right, now what did I say? Di, correct? So we'll see that cut line is where, here it is. So di, because this is made up of 2 pieces. So di. So like this. All right, see, the line is free. Okay, now if I say ui dd, if I say ui dd, now this is the line cut. Ui means it goes to the right side. Okay, so from here we have to count, correct now, because it is ui, this is the line, so ui means this side of the line. So I said ui dd. So let's count ui. So till this side of the line, ui. Okay, and what did I say? dd. So this is the free line cut, correct? So d means again this side of the line. How many times did I say d? Twice. So d. So see, the line again is free. So you will always have such algorithms where the line is free, it's not blocked. If it is blocked, which means you have done a wrong move then. Now if I say u d, so first check for the line cut. So what did I say? U. So 4 times I said u. So if this is the line cut, u goes to the left. So u. So this is the piece. Okay, it's come to this side of the line, and I said dd, correct? So if this is the line cut, dd means it goes to the right. So d. All right, see, the line is free. Now if I say di. Now if I say di, which means I am not going to touch my upper layer now. Why? Because I am only saying di. So check for the line cut. This is the line cut. Di. Di means it's going to the left. How many times did I say di? 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. So it comes to this side of the line. Okay, now if I say ui, so I have said the ui 5 times. Okay, now I have said only ui, which means I will touch only the upper layer, I will not do anything at the bottom layer. So ui. So first check for the free movement of the line cut. Free movement is here. Ui means it's going to my right side. So from here I will count ui. So this piece, this side red thing, will come to this side of the line cut. Okay, so this is how it works. All right, so first you guys should practice this bit. And yes, as I said earlier, if they say like we say R, we just don't move it only like this, we move the entire thing. Okay, the entire move is known as R. Okay, there is so basically in the square one cube you have the R move, you have the U move, you have the UI move, you have the DI move, you have the D move, and that middle slice, middle layer one. Okay, so there is no front, back and all that concept. Okay, all right. So first you guys, I suggest should practice this, and then we move on to the next part, so that you all have a basic understanding of what I just meant. Now we come to making of the cube. All right, so we'll go step by step, and I hope that I'm able to cover every single case or situation that arrives, and if not, I'll have to pause the video and then scramble again and create it for you. So now let's start with the first step. The first step is that you need to have a rainbow shaped clock on top and a flower at the bottom. Now to get the rainbow shaped clock on top, you need to ensure that your edge pieces, 8 of them should be on top, and all 8 of them should be connected back to back. All right, so we shouldn't have these and these should be close to each other. So all 8 of these should be close to each other. But if you cannot get all 8 of these close to each other, no problem, get 7 connected and 1 separate, and then we'll work out on that. And yes, this everybody struggles with this. I have struggled enough, and I'm sure I'm going to still struggle even while solving it for you right now. All right, but with practice we'll get that right. Don't have to worry. Okay, so right now let's see the top. 2 are connected over here, so let's keep them on the left. No, even if I keep it on the left of the line, will it move? See, this will not move, so I'll have to adjust my move. All right, so let's get rid of this. If we have a will it move? Yes, it is moving. I'll first get this on top. I'll take it out of the way. Now I have this piece. I'll bring it to this side of the line and see if it goes up. Yes, it is going up. So these 3 are connected. I just need to get rid of this first. Will I be able to? By bringing it down, I'm disturbing these as well. So no, I'm not able to do that. What if I bring these 2 to this side of the line? Yes, good. So I have brought these 2 to the right side of the cutting line, and this one is here. So when we take it up, we are getting rid of this. Great. Now let me count. 1 2 3 4 5 6. So 6 are there, but they are not connected. Okay, so these 2 are over here. So if I bring it to this side of the line, and it's the same thing actually. Okay, what I'll do is, again, I'll let go of this. I'll let go of these 2, and instead of 1 leaving from here and 1 leaving from here, when you do this, I'm getting 2 connected. So this will be, those 2 will connect with this yellow one. So I'm taking it up. Now I'll move it a bit here, and what if I want to get rid of this? Yeah, okay, I take this on top. Okay, now 1 2 again. If I bring them here, I take this up, this will go out. Now how many do I have? 1 2 3 4 5 6 I have connected. I'll bring it to this side of the cutting line. Great. I have one over here and one over here, which means my line is free, and I'm taking it up. Yes, so I have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 connected back to back and one separate, which means I've got my 8 edge pieces on top, but split in 7 plus 1 combo, where 7 are connected back to back and 1 is separate, no problem, and I've got my flower at the bottom. Okay, so this is how I have the case where 7 what you call them, edge pieces are connected back to back and 1 is separate. Okay, so the next step is when you have 7 edge pieces connected but 1 is separate, the next step is that you need to make a square on the top and the bottom. So how do you handle that? All right, so the algorithm for that is, now you hold your cube like that. All right, and very important, the holding position is very important. Hold your cube, your thumb should be on, your left thumb on the left tiny what do you call it, rectangle, and your right area, see your right side is free, correct? So your top layer should be positioned in such a way that one edge piece falls at 3 o'clock and the other falls at 6 o'clock. So just now, if I see, just now when my layer top and left and right are separated, my top I have it at 3, but do I have it at 6? No. So if I separate it like this, see, it was like that, right? So when the rule says that you separate it like this, so one edge piece when you see is at 3 and the other is at 6. So this should be your holding position. All right, make note of it or take a screenshot if you want. This is how it should be. All right, now let's do the algorithm. The algorithm is long, and see, I frankly speaking there are too many algorithms, so I'll need to keep glancing and repeating at times. But don't worry, I mentioned earlier that I will upload it on a link and you can pick it up from there. All right, so the algorithm, when you have to get the square on top and bottom, remember one edge piece at 3, the other one at 6, and now start R U U. So if this is the cutting line, U U, D I D I, this is the line. So D I D I, R U I U I U I, R, this is the cutting line, U I U I U I, D I D I D I D I. So this is the cutting line, D I D I D I D I, R U U U U, this is the cutting line, U U U U, D I D I D I. So this is the cutting line, D I D I D I, R U I U I U I U I U I. So this is the cutting line. So I said UI 5 times basically, UI 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 UI. So this orange piece basically comes here, DI 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 DI. This is the cutting line. So DI 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 DI, R D D D R. So if this is the cutting line, D D, D, R. So see, we got a square on top and a square at the bottom. So this was when you have 7 edge pieces connected back to back with one edge piece separate and placed at 3 and 6 o'clock position, how to get your square on top and bottom. Now I will again scramble and create a situation where you have all 8 edge pieces connected back to back, and how you make the square on top and bottom. Alright. Okay, now we'll try to connect all 8 edge pieces on top to make the rainbow clock. Let's start. Okay, what if I bring this here and I bring this here to connect. Okay, so these two can connect with this one when I take it up. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 connected. I'll keep it like this. I'll try and get very good. I'll try and get these two, so when I move it up, very good, it moves. So I have 6 connected now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll keep my this side free. 6, 6. I'll move one at a time. I'll move this up. It's coming back to that same thing. I'll try and let go of one. Okay, it's come to the same thing. One, two, three, 4 here. If I bring these 3 up, one, two, three, 4, 5, 6. Again I brought. Okay, yes. So now when I take it up, I have all 8 of them connected. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank God. So you have to kind of, this is not something which can be taught, because it depends on how you scramble it. So chalo, luckily we got it sorted. Now the next step, like basically when you have your 8 edge pieces connected back to back on top, and you make your rainbow shaped clock on top and the flower at the bottom, the next step is to make a square on top and the bottom. So what is the holding position? The first step, as usual, remember that your left side thumb should be on the tiny rectangle piece, and your 4 edges should be on the left side of the top layer and 4 edges should be on the right side of the top layer. So what do I mean by that? All these are edge pieces. So you divide this is the dividing line, correct? So you divide your cube in such a way that 4 of them are on the left and 4 of them are on the right. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's count 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, these 4 are on 4 are on the left and 4 are on the right, and this is how your position should be like. Please take a screenshot of this. All right, this should be your position when all 8 edge pieces are on top. All right, and you need to make a square on top and bottom. 4 edge pieces should be on the left side of the cutting line and 4 edge pieces should be on the right side of the cutting line, and also always as usual your middle line should have a tiny rectangle piece on the left. Now the algorithm is R UI UI R UI UI. This is the cutting line. So UI UI DI 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 DI. This is the cutting line. DI 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 DI. Yeah. R UI DI DI. So R UI. This is the cutting line. UI DI 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 R UI UI UI. So this is the cutting line. UI 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 DI DI DI. So this is the cutting line. DI 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 R. So see, we've got our square on the top as well as bottom. Alright. Now the next step is, like, once you get your square on top and bottom, you need to have the top corners of the same color. So basically orient the corners is what I mean. Now look at this cube. Alright. What color is the majority in the corner? Don't see the edges, only see the corners. This corner, this corner, this corner and this corner. What is the majority color? White, which means yellow is the odd man out on top, correct? Now watch your cube down. What is the majority color down? Yellow. So what is the odd one out? White. Okay, so when you have three same color corners and one odd, so place that odd corner on your top back left. This is my top back left, and same thing in the bottom, the odd one bottom back right. So bottom back right, correct? Odd one on top back left and the other odd one, required one, on the bottom back right. Okay, so if you want to take a screenshot, how do I show you? I'll show you like this. Alright, this is one, and I'll just show you the other way, like this. Okay, fine. Now very simple, like just too easy. You just have to get all your whites on top. Alright, so can you see this? I'm not able to move, right? I'm not able to move my cube. So just move once. Just move this piece once to the left. Okay? Basically do a U. Basically you have to do a U. Okay? And then do your R. So see what happens. You come at the next situation. Your next situation is what? That you have, I'll move the cube like that, two same color corners on top, basically two whites connected together on top and two yellows connected together on top. So what you can do is any one set of color, for example white, I'm choosing white. So keep that one bar on your left side and the required one here on the right, just the way you see it, basically just the way you see it. Okay, so you can take a screenshot of this. Alright, so when you have on your top. So this is the second case. You may arrive even at this situation. I'm happy that it arrived, so I didn't have to scramble. So when two same color corners are connected, so keep those connected corners, one on the left on the upper layer, and that same color which you kept on top left, keep it on bottom right. So in our case we kept white on the top left side, so we have to keep white on the bottom right side. Take a screenshot if you want to. Alright, same thing, you cannot move like that, right? So what you can move, but the algorithm is move it to the left, do a small u, do a u, and then take it up. Okay, you will also have one more case like this, where you know your top layer has the colors diagonally placed, and your bottom layer has the colors connected. So what do you do in such a case? In such a case, you simply can do the same thing. You just do a U. Okay, you do a U on the top layer, alright, and then rotate the cube. Okay, so that gives you one odd color on top. So top back left, and that same odd color bottom back right. Do your U, bring it up, so you have the connected color back to back and back to back, back to back, back to back. So if you're keeping white on the top left, so you keep white on the bottom right, and then again do a U and have it connected. Okay, alright, now the next step, once you sort your corners, so when you get your same color corners on top and your same color corners at the bottom, you need to get the same color edges also on top, which means that we are orienting the edges now. I just had to shuffle it because if you see the previous step, I had all my edge pieces also oriented on top and bottom. So I shuffled the cube and I got it to a situation where you have to orient the edges. So what do I mean by orient the edges? Check the color of the corners on top. Here what do we have? The corners are white, which means our edge pieces also should be white. Are all our edge pieces white? No. So we'll need to do it one at a time. Alright, so the first and the most important thing is same thing, your middle layer rectangle piece, small rectangle piece should be on your left. Now the odd piece, here we have 3 yellow odds, right? We need to get whites, right? So the yellows are the odd edges. So keep those pieces at the 3 o'clock position. So this yellow is at 3 o'clock position. Alright. In the same way, on the bottom layer, keep the required color at the 3 o'clock position. Okay, 3 o'clock position, bottom layer. Now you do the algorithm. Okay, the algorithm is U R di 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 r. So di 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 r, again di 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 r, ui di r. So this is the cut, ui di r, u d d d d r. So if this is the cut, u, this is the cut, d d d d r, again d d d, 3 D's basically, d d d r, UI. So see, we got at least 2 whites. Again, we need to fix these two. So again, bring it at 3 o'clock. So each time you fix a piece, bring it to 3 o'clock position on top, and the required one 3 o'clock at the bottom. Same algorithm, U, R, DI, 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 R, DI, 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 R, UI, DI, R, U, D, 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 R, D, 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 R, UI. Again, bring it to 3 o'clock position on top and 3 o'clock position bottom. Same thing, U, R, DI, 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 R, D, D, D. I'm sorry. It's again DI, DI, DI. So let me undo it. D, D, D. So DI, 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 R. UI, DI, R. UI, DI, R. U, D, 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 R. So D, 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 R. So D, 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 R. So see, we've got all the edge pieces matching the corners on top as well as bottom. Now the next step is that we need to get headlights, which means we need to permute corners. So the first thing you need to do is check whether you've got any headlights. Headlights means two of the same color, like 2 reds here or 2 blues over here. Are these headlights? No. 2 oranges or 2 reds here. Are these? No. 2 blues or 2 oranges here. Are these? No. 2 greens? Yes. So we got one set of headlights. So whenever you have one set of headlights ready, okay, keep them to your left. Keep them to your left. I've kept them to my left. Okay. If you don't have any headlights, don't worry. Then begin the algorithm from anywhere. But if you have your headlights ready, then keep them to the left and then do the algorithm. And the algorithm is R, DI, 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 R, D, 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 R, DI, 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 R, D, 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 R. Okay, so let's do that. Kept to my left. Now I'll start. This is my free line. R, DI, 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 R, D, 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 R, DI, 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 R, D, 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 R. So look, I've got headlights everywhere. 2 greens, 2 reds, 2 blues and 2 oranges. Okay. Once you get your headlights, what should we do next is, alright. You need to see whether you've got one entire, what you call bar ready. So what do I mean by entire bar ready? Now if you see in my like, what do you call it, cube. If you see it on my cube, my red bar is also ready, and my I saw another color, blue bar is also ready. So what you need to do is, you need to fix the green bar and you need to fix the orange bar. That means times none of your bars are ready. So I have created the situation to show you what happens after you get the headlights. Like once you get your headlights and none of your bars are ready, what should you do that time? So that time you need to choose your left hand side. your left hand side edge piece or anything. I mean, just choose your left hand side. Okay, now the opposite of left is right. Okay, right. Now what is the color of this edge piece? Green. So check for the green corners, the green headlights. Which side are they? This side or this side? So they are obviously behind. So it is going anti-clockwise. So to permute the top layer edges anti-clockwise, the algorithm is U R di 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 R d d d R di 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 R d d d R. Then do a UI again. R di 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 R d d d R di 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 R d d d R. So now we have created a bar. Sometimes you will have only one bar and sometimes you will have two bars. Times you will have only one bar ready. So when that one bar is ready, just place it to your left. Okay, now check your right hand side. Check your right hand side. See the color of that edge piece on your right hand side. So blue. Okay, now which side are the blue headlights? Because this is the blue piece, so which side are the blue headlights? Here or here? Towards me. So basically it is coming clockwise. It's coming clockwise. So to permute the edges clockwise, which is our next step, okay, to get two done bars. Basically in the previous case we got two done bars by chance, but what if you had only one done bar? So you have to basically permute the edges, right? So the step when you have only one done bar, the step to permute the edges is keep the done bar to your left, check the color of the edge piece on your right hand side, check whether it is going clockwise or anti-clockwise. In my case the blue is coming clockwise, so the clockwise algorithm is R di 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 R d d d R di 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 R d d d R. Now do a U again. R di 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 R d d d R di 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 R d d d R. So you see you've got all your bars done and sorted. All right, now once this is done, okay, sometimes you will have only two done bars. Sometimes you will have only two done bars. So if you have only two done bars, which means you are in a parity situation. All right, so when you get your two bars ready, your two done bars ready, you will see that on your right hand side this piece, this red edge piece is supposed to come here and this blue piece is supposed to come here, which means you have adjacent parity. You have adjacent parity. So when you have adjacent parity, what you should do is those parity pieces you have to keep it at 3 and 6 o'clock position, just the way it is placed just now. Okay, when 2 done bars are ready, check your remaining 2 edge pieces, okay, and you will see whether they are opposite each other or adjacent to each other. In this case, the top layer has adjacent parity. So when it has adjacent parity, place those parity pieces at 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock position, like this, 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock position. Okay, this is the cutting line. So at 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock position, and now you do your algorithm, which is R, UI, 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 R, D, 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 R, D, 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 R, D, I, D, I, D, I, R, D, I, D, I, D, I, R, D, 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 R, U, U, R, D, D, R, U, I, U, I, R, U, 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 R, D, I, D, I, R, D, D, R, U, I. First let me do the R, now U, I, D, 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 R, D, I, D, I, D, I, R. So you see our entire top layer has been completed successfully with the adjacent parity case. Now sometimes you will have like your 2 done bars on the top layer, like for example blue and green, 2 done bars on the top layer, okay, but when you see your right hand side piece, by default what you do, you place your done bar to the left and you try to check the color on the right side, but even your right side is done, which means you have opposite parity. Because see, blue is done, green is done, this orange needs to come over here and this red needs to come over here. So there is opposite parity in the top layer. So when you have opposite parity, you need to place your opposite parity pieces like this, like it should be in a straight line, like this, straight line, 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock. All right, now the algorithm is, okay, remember it should be in a straight line, okay. Now the algorithm is R, U, 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 D, D, D. So let's do that. U, 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 D, 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 R, U, R, U, R, U, I, U, I, D, I, D, I. So R, U, I, U, I, D, I, D, I. R, U, U, R, U, U, R, U, U, D, 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 R, U, I, R, U, I, R, U, I, U, I, U, I, D, I, D, I, D, I, R, U, I, U, I, U, I, D, I, D, I, D, I, R, U, I, U, I, R, U, I, R, U, 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 D, 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 R, U, D, D, D. R, U, U, U. R, U. R, U, I, D, I. R, U, I, D, I. R, U, I, U, I, U, I. U, I, U, I. R, U, D, R. So see, even your top layer is solved with opposite parity case. So once you get your top layer solved with adjacent or opposite parity case, you need to now handle the bottom layer in the same manner. So rotate your cube like this, okay, and ensure that you have the small rectangle piece on your left side. All right, so now we'll be handling the bottom layer, which is why we've placed it on top. Now the same thing, we need to first get the headlights on top, which means we have to permute the corners. So start looking for the headlights. Do you have any headlights? Yes, you have it. Okay, so if you have headlights for the bottom layer, if you have headlights, so basically when you place your bottom layer on top and then when you get the headlights, so keep those headlights on your back. Okay, one second. I've placed them on my back. But if you don't have any headlights, then begin the algorithm from anywhere. Then when you do that, now you will get a set of headlights and this layer will be disturbed, but don't worry about it. Okay, so when you get that one set of headlights, that time you will place those headlights to your left and again do the algorithm. But because I already have my headlights, I'm placing them behind and I'm doing the algorithm. If you don't have any headlights, begin from anywhere. You will get the headlights, place them on your left and then again do the algorithm. So for now, placing my headlights, my one set of headlights, I'm placing them at the back and the algorithm is same. R, DI, DI, DI. R, D, D, one second. D, D, D. R, DI, 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 R, D, 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 R. So I've got this headlights. Okay, so I'm going to place this set of headlights. See, my bottom layer is disturbed, but you don't have to worry. Place it to your left again. R, DI, 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 R, D, 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 R, DI, 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 R, D, 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 R. So we've got our headlights over here as well. Okay, now we need a done bar. Okay, our done bar in this case is orange, so place it to our left hand side. Now when we place the done bar to the left hand side, we need to kind of check the color of the edges on the right hand side. So the color of the edge is blue is coming clockwise. So the clockwise formula to permute the edges, the clockwise formula is R, DI, 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 R, D, 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 R, DI, 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 R, D, 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 R, U. Again, then R, DI, 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 R, D, 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 R, DI, 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 R, D, 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 R. Okay, so luck by chance, we've got the entire Dunbar, and you know how to get your like supposing you had 2 Dunbars, supposing instead of all 4 done from 1 Dunbar you already got 4 Dunbars, but just in case you had 2 Dunbars, which means there would have been either adjacent parity or opposite parity. So just go back to the a few just rewind a little bit to follow the formula for adjacent parity or the formula for opposite parity. It remains the same. All right, now when you see this cube, you will see red fully done up, I mean the yellow face fully done and the white face fully done. The top layer red done matching the bottom, then the top layer green done matching the bottom green, the top layer orange done matching the bottom orange, and the same for the top layer blue done matching the bottom blue. So what is odd over here is this, right? This, there is this odd piece which is jutting out. Can you see on the right hand side it is jutting out in a very odd manner, and even this side of the cube it's very odd. So we have a middle layer parity, we have a middle layer parity. So how do you handle the middle layer parity? When a piece is odd and it is jutting out, basically it is not like how this orange is completely smooth and flat. You need a little wider orange piece over here of this size. Okay, you don't have it. So when you have a parity in the middle layer where the piece is odd and it is jutting out, the algorithm is R U U U U U U 6 times U U U U U U U R again 6 times U. Okay, U U U U U U R. Okay, so we have solved the cube with the middle layer parity where the piece was odd and it was jutting out. Now this is a different parity case. Look at this. White is fully done, yellow is fully done, orange is also fully done. It's nice, flat and smooth. In the same way, red is also fully done. Nice, flat and smooth. But when you look at green, you have this entire flat bar and it's not even green, correct? And when you look at blue, you have the entire green bar and basically flat. So you have what you call the opposite parity. You have the opposite parity in the middle layer. Okay, your middle layer has opposite parity. So whenever you have opposite parity in your middle layer, what you need to do is your fully done colors. What are your fully done colors? In my case it is orange and red. So what you have to do is you have to keep one in the front and the other at the back. Okay, keep any one color in the front and the other color at the back. Okay, now the algorithm is R U U U U U U D I D I D I D I D I D I. So basically 6 U's and 6 DI's and then R. So let's do that. I have done the R. Now U U U U U U D I D I 6 times. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 and R. So your square one cube has been solved successfully. Alright, I have covered every single aspect, every single case, every single holding position to the core. So I know that this video has gone really long, but I have not missed out on anything for you. So please acknowledge this hard work of mine by giving me a like, and please forward it to as many people because they will benefit from it. And as I mentioned earlier, I will upload a link where you can download these algorithms, because I cannot put it all in the description box. My description box will have a link which you can access, and or you can even send me a comment in the comment section if you wish to, where I can mail it to you. The best is to upload the link. You will easily get it from there. Alright, so please like, share and subscribe to my channel, and visit my channel for other videos. Thank you very much.